Blah.
Hello and welcome to Stuff Every Queer Kid Should Know, a survival guide for late adolescence and beyond. My name is Max Emerson, and I'm a writer-performer using my social media platforms to create independent narratives. Like the rest of my work, the mission of this podcast is to provide valuable resources, role models, and tools to enhance well-being, connection, and personal fulfillment. Today is our very first episode. My guest for this Virgin Voyage is Dr. Eric Cervini, who is here to talk about queer American history. Dr. Eric Cervini is an award-winning author, producer, and historian of LGBTQ+ politics. His first book, The Deviant's War, The Homosexual versus the United States of America, was a New York Times bestseller and a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize. It also won the Publisher Triangle's Randy Schultz Award for Gay Nonfiction, the New York Times Editor's Choice, and the Best Read of 2020 at the Queerties. Cervini is the creator and executive producer of The Book of Queer, a queer history docu-series boasting 6 Emmy nominations and the largest all-queer cast in Hollywood history. It premiered on Discovery Plus in June 2022 and is now streaming on Max, the HBO platform, not like my YouTube channel or anything. In October 2022, Eric launched shopqueer.co, an independent bookshop that splits its profits with LGBTQ+ authors. Dr. Eric Cervini, thank you so much for being a part of this brand new podcast.
It is an honor to be on this Virgin Voyage with you, Max.
I've prepared a rapid-fire series of questions for my audience to get to know you as quickly as possible in a segment that I call, Who the Hell Are You?
Oh, dear.
Ready?
I guess.
Please state your name for the record.
Eric Cervini.
What is your zodiac sign?
Aries.
Ooh. What are you an expert in, and what are we talking about today?
Queer history.
All right. Queer American History 101.
101.
What is your most favorite animal?
Dog.
Least favorite animal?
The cats.
Cheers. What's the last thing you ate?
Like an energy bar.
All right, we're running on fumes today. Here we go. How many caffeinated beverages do you drink in a day?
How many don't I drink in a day?
What is your caffeinated beverage of choice?
Cold brew.
All right.
Yeah.
You're running on cold brew and an energy bar. Let's do this.
We're gonna have fun.
What is your biggest pet peeve?
Ooh, the sound of nail clippers.
Oh, like the
sound.
So are you like anti-ASMR then? Because that feels like...
No, it's very specifically that sound of like nail clippers. I hate it.
It's like that chalkboard feeling where you just get goosebumps.
It's like that times 10. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a lot of those sounds that I really... Anyways. Yeah. Dream vacation destination.
Ooh, anywhere with a beach.
Do you have a favorite beach?
Ooh, I don't know. Like PV. Okay. Puerto Vallarta.
Puerto Vallarta?
Yeah.
Favorite sport or game?
Any game?
Chase ball. What is your favorite thing about queer bars?
Any queer bar? I like the community.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of history to them too, right?
And a lot of history.
We're getting into that.
Yeah.
There's more history in bathrooms according to your book, but
there's equal amounts of history in both.
Chicken or egg.
Yes.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being a virtual hellscape and 10 being utopia.
Okay.
How are things looking for queer people in America right now?
I'm going to say 5 because we're at a pivotal moment and it could go in either direction, but I'm optimistic.
Okay. What was the last item that you misplaced?
Everything. My mind. No, my keys, definitely.
Where were they?
In my pocket.
All right. What was the last thing you were super mad about?
I don't know. It was some drunk fight with my boyfriend and I can't even remember what it was about.
What was the last thing that made you cry?
Probably the same thing.
You're consistent. I like you. What is the location of the worst date you've ever been on?
Ooh, there are so many. My first date ever with a guy was really terrifying, and it was at a chocolate restaurant. It was like they only served chocolate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was so scared that I ended up inviting all my friends to it. So it was like me and this guy and like 5 of my friends because I just wanted to turn it into
You
like
ambushed him?
Yeah, it was bad.
But it was actually a date. Like your first encounter was...
He thought it was a date, but then I turned it into like a friend's hangout.
But like your first encounter wasn't like I don't know, just for example, like meeting some dude on the beach in the middle of the night. I don't know who would do
with
that.
This guy?
Yeah, like no, for anyone, like your first queer anything.
Oh, you're asking my first.
Was that your first
It was
Gay
experience ever. No, I held hands with a guy once before that.
You are so pure.
I know, it was
you.
really pure. And then, no, this one was like at a freshman year dance. Yeah, like a gay dance.
Do you think it's the worst date he's ever had?
Probably,
Nice.
honestly.
And what is your most prized possession?
My dog.
Cheers.
Yeah.
I think that was Andres' answer too. No, it was his box full of stuff. All right. I have a few more questions that are tailored to you so that everyone can get to know you a little bit better.
Good.
As an author, producer, and historian, you wear many hats. How do you balance these different roles, and what aspect of your work do you find the most fulfilling?
Ooh, how do I balance them? I ask that to my therapist every week, Friday at 1 p.m. I don't know. It changes. It changes every day what I'm prioritizing. But I think they're all interconnected, you know, whether it's studying history or selling books or, you know, doing things like this. It's all about learning from our past and creating community now, learning lessons to do better, right, in the future.
Yeah.
So, but it's hard. You know, I think these days everyone's wearing multiple hats, right? In this like gig economy, it's just everyone has a million things that they need to be doing at once, especially with, you know, internet, social media. So I think it's something where we all should be talking to our therapists about.
To be completely honest, I was surprised you agreed to do this because you have so many things pulling you in a million different directions. So I'm very
We
glad
all
that you're
do.
here.
We all do. So it's an honor to be here.
Generally, when people hear the word doctor in someone's title, they don't usually imagine someone who's hot.
Hot doctors are like a thing.
Yeah, has that affected you either in your professional
real
or
doctors.
social life? It's true. Well, you're a real doctor.
No, I'm talking like the kind that can help you.
Don't give me that Jill Biden
I can give
erasure
you
nonsense.
I know. She's the one who inspired me actually to put it in like my social media and stuff. So I was like, you know what? She's right. Like, we are doctors.
So when you're
I
on
can't
an
even say it
airplane
with a
and
straight
the
face.
flight attendant's like, is there a doctor on board?
Oh, I mean, it's that amazing. What
Like,
is it at
Dad's
30
nudging
Rock?
you and they're like, someone wants to know about Stonewall, right? Like,
Yeah, I can give you lots of fun facts in a medical emergency, but that's about it.
okay.
Yeah. A lot of facts about the 60s.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to get into that.
Good.
So you grew up queer in Texas and you went to Harvard University. How? Yeah.
My mom. I mean, single mom, raised me by herself, selling makeup, Mary Kay, if you ever knew those. So I was like dropped off to school every
She had
day
the
in a pink car.
So she won. She won
Oh
Mary
yeah,
Kay.
she did very, very well. So she like worked harder than anyone I ever knew and taught me how to work my ass off and was just so supportive, sending me to space camp, debate camp, stuff like that. And I was really lonely and didn't have any friends. So all I really did was study and read. That's all I did. And if you're a lonely kid who does nothing but study and read, then you'll end up at Harvard.
There you go.
There you go.
I guess everything's a trade-off.
It is.
I find that with like most experts, I'm like, how do you have a life in something? Because it just seems like the massive knowledge, like where do you put anything else in your brain? Although you also speak Spanish and French. So you've got room in your brain.
I did. That bio might not be updated. Maybe it's like my LinkedIn or something.
Okay.
But my mom was actually a Spanish teacher before she sold makeup. Then she was like, I can't.
Can you teach us any useful phrases in each language?
Oh, no. Me encanta la historia. I love history.
Okay.
How do you say that
You're
in
like
French?
the one person that donde está la biblioteca is like an appropriate phrase.
I say it every day.
Yeah.
How do you say that in French? J'aime l'histoire, I think. Something like that. I don't know how to say I love history in French, but something like that.
All right, we're going to scratch that one. On top of being a queer historian, television producer, you are also a political activist, an active campaigner. You've worked on election campaigns of 2 Texas state representatives, in the office of a U.S. Senator from Texas, and at a Texas headquarters during the first Obama presidential campaign, and have interned at the Clinton Foundation and the Democratic Governors Association.
Girl, you like skimmed my not skimmed. What is it? Scraped my LinkedIn. That is like everything.
There's a lot here.
Yeah.
But
that's over the course of like 20 years.
Still, that's.
It makes it sound like I'm doing all that now. But no, I mean, I
never ran for office in like my high school. I didn't do any of these things.
Yeah.
What's the most important lesson you've gotten from that experience?
Well, I mean, my mom, to her credit, you know, that first Obama one, that was back in 2008, right? That was, 15 years ago? And she would drive me every day in rush hour traffic after school. And it would take like an hour to get from my town in Central Texas to Austin, where the Obama headquarters was. And she would drive me in that pink car every day for me to go intern for the Obama campaign for like 3 or 4 hours. And she would go.
Sounds like a competitive soccer mom.
Yes. And then she would go pick
Obama.
me up. Yeah. She would pick me up from, the Obama headquarters and take me back. Meanwhile, she was like working, selling makeup to support us.
It was probably safer than a gay boy driving a pink, what was the car?
Cadillac.
It was a Cadillac?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
awesome.
probably not safe for you to be driving that car around Texas.
I really wanted to. I think I was just so, I don't know about you, but like when you're still closeted, you're still trying to find ways to be subversive, or like an ally or kind of cool without, find ways to mask your femininity. And I think that was one way for me to do it. It was like, my mom, is this big flamboyant
Peacock
personality.
lady.
Yeah. So therefore, like that explains my own femininity. But
well, the male peacocks are the colorful ones.
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting. I always try to just like, it was almost competitive to see who could be more comfortable with weird gay shit.
Interesting.
But it was almost,
when did you come out?
was almost like playing chicken because you were trying to bait the other person into actually doing something gay. So you could be like, haha, I got you.
I wish I knew about that game.
Yep. Gay chicken? You don't know about gay chicken? Ooh.
No, it sounds fun though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt like the stress of living authentically is keeping you up at night? You're not alone. Many of us in the LGBT community face challenges that can disrupt our sleep and overall well-being. I know what it's like to carry the weight of the day into the night. The worries, the stress, and constant pressure can make it hard to unwind. I used to lie awake for hours, replaying conversations and anticipating the challenges of the next day. That's when I found Magnesium Breakthrough. Incorporating it into my nightly routine has been a game changer. It helps me let go of the day's anxieties so I can finally get the deep restorative sleep I need. Now I wake up feeling more grounded, more myself, and ready to face whatever comes my way. Magnesium Breakthrough is different because it contains all 7 forms of magnesium, each one helping to calm your mind and relax your body. Unlike other supplements, it's designed to support you holistically, helping you both sleep better and feel more centered throughout the day. Take control of your well-being. Visit bioptimizers.com/MaxEmerson and use code MaxEmerson for 10% off your first order. And when you subscribe, you'll get additional discounts, free gifts, and the peace of mind knowing that your monthly supply is guaranteed. Embrace the rest and renewal you deserve. Ever wonder how your daily habits like your meals, sleep, or stress impact your health? NutriSense offers a way to take the guesswork out of the wellness journey. For many people, managing health can feel like a shot in the dark. They're trying different diets, workouts, and routines, but without the right information, it's hard to know what's truly working. That is where NutriSense comes in. NutriSense isn't just another health trend. It's a comprehensive program that pairs real-time data from a continuous glucose monitor with one-on-one personalized coaching from expert nutritionists. This combination helps users understand how their bodies respond to food, exercise, sleep, and stress, giving them the insights they need to make informed decisions about their health. What sets NutriSense apart is its unique approach to personalized health. While other programs might offer generic advice, NutriSense tailors its advice based on your unique data. With the support of a board-certified nutritionist, users can receive customized recommendations that align with their specific health goals, making it easier to achieve lasting results. If you're ready to take control of your health, visit nutrisense.io/MaxEmerson to get $50 off your first month. That is nutrisense.io/MaxEmerson. Or you can click on the link in the notes and use my special code, MaxEmerson, for an exclusive $50 discount. Take the first step towards better health with NutriSense today.
Yeah, so I had a fake ID when I was 16 from a 25-year-old twink, he's still a twink, who worked in the theater that I would do shows at. He gave me his fake ID, and he looked like he was 14. So my friends were always so impressed with my acting skills because I could go to the beer store and buy anything I wanted as long as I act super gay at the register.
Wow.
He just thought I was like some gay 25-year-old twink.
Right.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
So that was sort of in line with what you're talking about, is like that subversive, like kind of towing the line.
Right.
Thing.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to justify, no, I'm not gay, but I'm, myself.
Yeah. I don't have this on the questions, but I want to include this. During the last election cycle, you were campaigning in Texas and got run off the road. What happened?
So obviously politics really important to me. From Texas back in 2020, we thought we had a chance, right? We thought we could turn Texas blue.
That was Beto?
He ran twice, but that was for Senate. This was for the presidency. I mean, we really thought we thought we could turn it because everyone was sick of Trump. People in Texas didn't love him. And so I flew down to volunteer for the campaign, and they were doing a bus tour with the Biden-Harris tour.
Yeah.
And so I went. I was actually driving ahead of the bus. I was supposed to get inside the bus, but I was helping them get set up for events and stuff. And this caravan of like 50 50 trucks and at least 50 to 60. They had like a Facebook group or something, and so they had planned it, and they were lined up against the interstate, and they all descended on to the interstate and tried to run off the bus off the road. So I wasn't in the bus. I was ahead of them.
The candidates on the bus?
There were candidates. It wasn't Biden and Harris.
Okay.
It was candidates for Congress, like Wendy Davis.
Right. They would have scrambled jets if that happened, right?
You would have thought, but even with like a candidate for U.S. Congress on the bus, I was the one calling 911, and
Except the cops were in the trucks.
Literally.
So
yeah.
So how did that end?
It ended with 2 lawsuits, one of which the police department settled with us and admitted fault because they found in the discovery part of the lawsuit that they had recordings of the sheriff and the dispatcher basically laughing and refusing to send any help when these people were getting attacked on the interstate.
Ow.
Yeah. So don't fuck with Texas Democrats.
Tread lightly.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to talk about writing now.
Ooh.
The Deviance War.
Uh-oh.
And being a queer historian. The Homosexual versus the United States of America. New York Times bestseller. Finalist for the Pulitzer Prize. I remember when you got that news. That was so cool.
Crazy.
What inspired you to delve into the story of Frank Kameny specifically?
Yeah.
Like, why him? Why not some other activist? Why the early LGBT rights movement in America? Can you share some insights into your research process for the Deviance War, like how you approached gathering and interpreting the historical documents and personal narratives and fact-checking, like all of it? Like, how did you pick where to start, and what was that process like?
I mean, it was so much serendipity. Like, I think you can gather from the stories that I've told. Like, I came out pretty late. I was 18. And so I had no concept of queer history at all. And
You weren't like a theater kid or anything? You didn't have any of those? Okay.
No. I mean, I did like band and debate and other nerdy things, but they were kind of generically nerdy versus, anything that would have, and even the one kid at my high school, I mean, the 4 years I was there, I knew one kid who was a senior when I was a freshman. And one day he just disappeared, and we found out it was because he had tried to take his own life because of the bullying. So that was like my template for what it meant to be gay. And so obviously after that,
like all the movies at the time too, it's always like the gay dude dies at the end.
Right.
Or
100%.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think Brokeback came out when we were around that age.
Even like Spring Awakening though.
Yeah.
Like all this stuff. Like it was not until maybe like 12 years ago that we like got gay characters that didn't just die.
Yeah. Yeah.
We should get to be evil now.
Sorry.
Siri.
Siri is angry. So one of the first things that gave me a glimpse of what I didn't know was Milk, the film Milk, about Harvey Milk in San Francisco. And I had just come out and happened to watch this film when I was maybe a sophomore or junior in college. And, I was studying American government and history at the time, and I thought I had a pretty good grasp of American history. And then I watched this movie.
And you didn't know who he was before?
No idea.
Okay.
No idea. And I was from Texas. They certainly didn't teach it in Texas, right? I don't know if the airport in San Francisco or the terminal was named after him yet. So maybe Californians would know. But in Central Texas, I was not taught. This was not part of the, even the AP curriculum
It's still not.
or whatever.
I'm from Florida.
Of course not, right? Now it's like even more so not. But I watched that film and I said, how in the world did I not know this story? And number two, what other stories are out there that I don't know about and maybe that other people don't know about either?
Would you mind giving us a 5-second summary on who Harvey Milk was?
Sure. Harvey Milk was one of the first openly gay elected officials in the United States. He was elected to what is functionally the city council in San Francisco, and was tragically murdered by one of his colleagues after that really historic feat.
Yeah, the subject of the Deviant's War, Frank Kameny, also ran for office, but was not as successful. There's criticism as to why that happened necessarily. I heard a fun fact. Can you verify this, whether or not it's true? I heard that Harvey Milk did not win his seat campaigning on gay rights as much as he won his seat pretty much on a platform of getting people in his neighborhood to pick up their dog's shit.
That was part of it.
It was basically like a let's stop trashing our place, like beautification type of campaign.
Yeah.
That is partially true?
Yeah.
Because you got to get the straights to care about something, because they don't necessarily vote on gay stuff. Like, you do have to appeal to everybody as a queer, like, and you had that working against you. Like,
yeah. And he used that, but what really flipped the switch for his success was they changed the way that voting happened in San Francisco. So it was by districts versus at large.
Okay.
And so the Castro suddenly got its own representative, essentially. And that is how, even though he had run before and tried some of these tactics, he was able to say, okay, now the gay vote needs to be represented.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So let's go back to Frank Kameny.
It's Kameny?
Kameny.
Yeah. Just so...
Thank you,
yeah,
Kameny.
Yeah,
I meant to ask that.
Yeah.
Frank Kameny.
It's not a big deal, but I've just heard like really famous people say it wrong before, and I'm like, oh,
as they're like giving him
they're
his
like
Medal of
doing it.
Freedom?
I know,
Yeah, okay.
I know. But it's not a big deal.
So he's an interesting person to pick for the subject of this, because he did do so much. I mean, let's talk about the necessity for forming gay advocacy groups, which the early ones were the Mattachine, am I pronouncing
Mattachine,
that?
yeah.
Mattachine Societies, which I feel like in your book went from this arc of being on the forefront and way ahead of their time for the things that they were advocating for, to like in only a couple of years being completely outdated and stuck in the mud. Like, they're pretty much the log cabin Republicans of today. So how did we get from like clandestine meetings in bathrooms and glory holes and lurking around parks to forming out and open groups?
Yeah. Whew. Well, it's a long process. There's multiple books written on it, but a lot of it started right here in Los Angeles. And, the first national gay rights organization in the U.S. was called the Mattachine, and it was founded by a group of 7 communists and
Here
fellow
or
travelers.
SF?
Here in LA.
Oh, it was here?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Actors, writers, teachers, all of whom had either connections or were, supportive or friendly to the communist movement. And a big part of their thinking was, if you're a communist, the basic principle is that workers make up a minority group like any other that just don't know that they're oppressed. So if only we teach workers that they're an oppressed group,
Unlocking the power.
exactly, then they can coalesce and fight back. So they use that same principle and applied it to queers and said, queers who at the time, no one thought of us as a minority group. It was a behavior. It was a sin, right? It was
a psychological
sickness.
disorder.
Exactly.
Right?
It was something you did, and it was something you did wrong. But no one had really, with some exceptions, had really said, we are a minority group that is being persecuted by society or by the government, and we need to stick together. And they were really among the first. There had been some, pieces of movements before them, especially in Europe and elsewhere. But in the U.S., they came together and they started discussion groups, almost like a book club, right? Or a consciousness raising session is what they called it. And it would be a group of men and women would get together in a house just like this, mostly in Silver Lake. They were based in Silver Lake. And they would just talk about their issues. And it grew and it grew and it grew. And then eventually it got so big that the rest of the organization said, whoa, wait a second. This is the McCarthy era, right? This is when
they're getting conflated with communists.
Exactly. So this is the 50s. Everyone's very scared. This is the Red Scare. Everyone's terrified of communists in the government. And they say, whoa, we can't have communists affiliated with us. We're already homosexual. We can't be communists too. So they get purged from the movement.
Oh, well. As gays are being purged from the government. Yeah,
exactly. And so to answer your question, I think it happens time and time again in history where, a persecuted group tries to get power for itself. And once they do, and once they're able to get either leadership positions or some semblance of power, they very often take
tyrants.
They take on the exact same characteristics of the oppressor.
Yeah, I got a lot of context from this book as to why pride parades are the way they are and have the current discussions that they have right now. But one of the first takeaways I had, even just like maybe a third of the way through the book, that is just kind of like, as long as queer people have been organizing and like organizing themselves, they've been infighting.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Half the book is fighting the government and the other half is just fighting each other. It's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah. And I mean, researching that, like you get a glimpse of it. You get the most interesting fights, right? Of within, because, first there was the Mattachine Society and then there was the Daughters of Bilitis, right? Because the women.
The lesbian group.
Yes. The lesbian organization.
With an obscure name, of course.
Yeah. Exactly. And that was part of the point, right? Because you don't want outsiders knowing that, we're meeting as the queer alliance or something, because you'll either get raided or arrested or something like that. But women then started their own organizations, trans folks started their own organizations, and then even within the organizations and of course across the organization, everyone was fighting always. And, I'm sitting there as a historian reading all the meeting minutes, right? And the and the letters and the letters and the letters. There's hundreds of thousands of pages of documents. And I would say maybe the majority of those documents were about things, topics, issues that had nothing to do with their actual goals, right? It was them getting distracted by fighting
over
against
a boy.
Yeah, well, sometimes. That was sometimes like subtext.
Well, you mentioned one of the younger activists coming down and like wreaking havoc by
yeah.
screwing the whole friend group, essentially.
Exactly.
But yeah, I really do love that cycle of Frank Kameny being persecuted and busted and losing his security clearance and organizing and fighting, but then quickly becoming a tyrant, like enforcing dress codes at his protests and approving every sign and the order that people stand in, and not allowing trans people or whatever derogatory phrase they were calling them at the time, and just really imposing that, like, if you're going to be gay, you have to be normal in every single other sense of the word. And it was really cool to see him kind of have to grasp that. And I feel like you captured him coming around to it really beautifully.
Yeah. And it was a long process, and I think the reason more people don't know his name is because even though, and for context, Kameny started the Washington organization, the Mattachine. After that, the collapse of the original one, he kind of stole the name.
And then the fight over the name.
Yeah. Right. Of course, we're fighting. But he was really the first to say federal employees who were being purged from their jobs. This was called the Lavender Scare. So at the same time, there was the Red Scare. They actually coincided.
It didn't, like, I feel like the Red Scare ended at one point and then
it kept going. So Lavender Scare kept
queers.
Going. I mean, as long as the Civil War existed, there was a fear of communism, but it was really the Red Scare mostly in the 50s. And the Lavender Scare, you're right, it kept going really until the 90s. That's when the Clinton administration ended.
But even then, Don't Ask, Don't Tell was its own version.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, Frank Kameny, he lost his job at the height of the space race. He was well positioned to be one of the founding fathers of the American manned space program. And, he had a PhD from Harvard, astrophysicist, smartest guy, like we needed him to create our space program to fight the Russians. But then the FBI found out he was gay, right? He got arrested in a restroom. And he was banned from working for the government for the rest of his life.
I really try to eat clean and make sure that everything I put into my body is as pure and high quality as possible. That doesn't just go for the food I eat, but also for the supplements I take, especially when it comes to omega-3 oils. We all know that fish, which is a great source of omega-3, comes from the ocean, but our oceans aren't always as clean as we'd like. That's why I'm so careful about the fish oil I choose. I found that Peoria 3 Ultra Pure Fish Oil is different. It's made from small fish, which are less likely to contain harmful contaminants. And if you've ever had those nasty fish burps after taking omega-3, you know how unpleasant that can be. It could even mean your fish oil is rancid. But with Peori, I never worry about that. Their O3 fish oil is clean certified and third-party tested by the Clean Label Project against more than 200 contaminants, including heavy metals and pesticides. Plus, every batch is IFOS certified with a perfect 5-star score for purity and freshness. Oh, and get this, every bottle comes with a QR code that lets you see the specific test results for your batch. How rare is that? I take Peori's O3 Ultra Pure Fish Oil every day because I know I'm getting a premium, potent source of omega-3 that supports my heart, brain, and eyes. It's that peace of mind knowing I'm consuming something that's not just effective, but also clean and trustworthy. That keeps me coming back. And now you can try Peori's O3 Ultra Pure Fish Oil for yourself. They're offering my listeners 20% off plus an additional 20% off if you subscribe. That's almost a third off the price. So just go to Peori.com and use my promo code MaxEmerson. That's P-U-O-R-I, Peori.com/MaxEmerson. Don't miss out. Head to Peori.com/MaxEmerson and use promo code MaxEmerson today.
Stuff Every Queer Kid Should Know is brought to you by Max Emerson's newest novel, The Sparkle Club. What happens when a gay-baiting influencer and social justice warrior goes too far and accidentally gets himself canceled? The Sparkle Club is a novel told through 3 alternating perspectives and follows Markle Sparkle on his road to redemption, doing a summer of community service while living in rural Ohio with the family whose lives he destroyed. Only 1,000 limited edition hard copies are available at thesparkleclub.org. The ebook is available at all online platforms. Grab a copy today and see what all the fuss is about. And it wasn't even that after a while, because you could tell that there was just so much, I don't know another word for it other than just bullying.
Yeah.
Because he lied about it at one point because he thought it was expunged. And then instead of calling it because you're gay, it was because you lied on this form.
Right.
So they just kept finding a way to go about it.
Exactly.
One of my favorite parts of the book was devastating. It was the Dowdy, am I pronouncing that right? The Dowdy hearing where they're interviewing him. He finally gets his chance to be seen and plead his case. And was it a senator?
Congressman, yeah.
Just grilled into him. And
Yeah.
the kind of questions that not only he was asking, but everyone was asking these people were so invasive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's so performative, right? I mean...
But even at I guess there was laws against oral sex. There's laws against anal sex. So even any of it, you wouldn't ask a straight person any of these questions. It just felt like he just got pummeled up there with these inappropriate questions, and everyone just sat back in this clinical setting as if it was okay. I would have thought I was losing my mind.
Oh yeah. And it was over the course of 4 hours, just to be annihilated by a sitting congressman in the halls of Congress. I think he held his own. He got trapped a bit in some of the questioning, but it was one of the first times where he admitted his personal belief that homosexuality, not only was it not an illness, it wasn't something that was immoral, it was actually something that was good. It was, what he would later phrase as gay is good. And so it kind of forced him to say that out loud.
To reject the shame on it.
Right. In one of the scariest contexts imaginable. And after that, he lost a lot of that fear. Right. So even though it was an incredibly scary, traumatic experience, I think it pushed him in the right direction.
And I don't want to spoil everything in your book, but there is some closure here. Dowdy was later arrested for accepting a bribe in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You'll have to read the book to get all the details.
It's one of my favorite. When I found that out, it's just
so good.
It's so poetic. And it's like, all right.
Did Kameny know about it?
Karma is real.
Was he up to date on this stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
so
he found out.
He was following it.
I just wanted him to know.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he knew. Yeah. For sure.
Were there any other figures that you debated making the center of this book? Because I feel like the book does this great job of having kind of that feminist documentary structure where you're examining all sides of a topic, including the kind of hero's journey of a central character, but then still also integrating that Eastern type of storytelling where the hero doesn't just save the day so you can sit on your ass and watch the Jesus story or any Marvel movie. The story is to aid you in the viewer's journey. So
yeah, well said.
Were there other figures that you almost went with instead as your subject?
Yeah. The book ended up being around 500 pages. The manuscript, when I first turned it in to my editor, was over 750 pages. And yes, way too
So
long.
you had like 6 heroes' journeys for,
Exactly.
I'm guessing, some of the DOB, the Daughters of Bilitis characters. Yeah.
Exactly. So it was much more of an ensemble approach. And my editor got back to me. He saw the word count and he said, I am not opening this document. Like, I'm not even going to start reading this. You
know better, Eric.
You need to cut this down. And his recommendation, Frank was always going to be the through line of it all. And I wanted to have more, secondary characters who were just as vibrant and as important. But at the end of the day, I had to, for the sake of my publisher, I had to cut a lot of it down. So they're all still in there, but I had to cut like Harry Hay, who created the Mattachine Society here in LA. His section was probably 4 or 5 times longer.
Well, he has such a really dramatic story.
Fascinating
as a FBI informant ratting on his own kind.
Oh
right?
my gosh, yeah! So many of these stories were Barbara Giddings, Ernestine Eppinger, like so many of these people. Who deserve their own books. And that's the only way I was able to really rationalize. I was like, all right, these people don't have their books right now. Some of them actually do. Some books have come out since then. But people will be able to write these books and they deserve their own books.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
I love that. God, there's so much there. This is such a great book. I always read dense nonfiction instead of like taking Ambien to go to sleep.
Yeah. Oh, well.
So I'll read something. No, that's the problem with your book. It's actually a criticism wrapped in a compliment. So I usually read really dense nonfiction in order to put myself to sleep. Like if I'm reading like David Sedaris or like a good nonfiction book, I'm like, one more chapter and I'm up until 2:33 a.m.
Yeah.
This book didn't work for me. I was up till like 4 a.m. reading when I finished your book. I'm like, I just want to go to bed. Stop it. Like I was so invested.
It just keeps going.
But it reads like a story. It doesn't feel
Thank
like
you.
I mean, I've done like the Benjamin Franklin biography. Love it. It's lovely.
No comment.
It's good partying. Okay. All right. No comment. Let's move on to Allstora. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Allstora.
Yeah. Allstora. Okay. In addition to your literary and visual works, you've also launched the Allstora with RuPaul. It is an independent bookshop supporting LGBTQ plus authors. What inspired you to create this platform? And what impact do you hope it will have on LGBTQ plus representation in the literary world?
Yeah, I mean, so my book came out in 2020. And it was the middle of the pandemic. About a month before the book came out, my editor got laid off. My publicist got laid off. I had obviously never published a book before. And one thing I learned, as you know, is that it's up to the author to do all
everything.
You
like start a podcast.
Yeah. That's how I started, my book club. And, I even started during COVID a podcast for a time, which is how I learned how hard this is to do. And I realized how little support there is for authors in general, but especially marginalized authors. There just isn't really that marketing support unless you are a huge celebrity. You're on your own when it comes to selling your book. And
right, unless they deem you bankable by the almighty algorithm.
right,
you're on your own.
TikTok, something somewhere tells you that you've made it. But I had to learn on my own. And I realized, actually, I really enjoy this. I love, not just talking about my book, but talking about other people's books. So I started a book club, started with Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. That was my first book selection. And that was in March of 2020. And for the past 4 years, have selected a book every single month from across the queer experience. And after a while, my literary agent actually said, hey, Eric, we can see in book sales reports, anytime you announce a book, we can see the spikes.
Nice.
Have you ever considered selling them? I was like, oh, that's kind of an interesting idea. So
right, because these platforms take so much.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, so Amazon, Barnes & Noble, any bookshop takes 5 times more on average. If you're a published author, 5 times more than the author from the sale of a book. So if you buy my book for $20,
the physical book.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you buy my book for $20 on Amazon, I get 2 and Amazon gets 10, which is absurd. I think. And so
I thought it was actually less. I thought you were getting.
It depends.
I thought you were getting a couple bucks per copy.
Oh,
It's actually,
yeah.
That's better. Okay.
yeah, I mean, it's like 10% for hardcovers. For paperbacks, it's like 7.5. For ebooks, it ranges. If you're self-published,
just a
it's
couple
all
bucks.
over.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I
No,
mean,
that's why I've entirely decided to self-publish, and
Yeah.
there's only 1,000 copies, so anyone who really wants one can have it. Otherwise,
Right.
get the ebook.
Yeah.
Like it has to actually mean something in order to, because I don't understand like how many copies would you have to sell to make an annual salary?
Well, and that's if you even earn out your advance. So you get,
Right.
if maybe you're a first-time novelist, you get maybe 10 grand or something, which is below minimum wage. You work a year or 2 years on it, and then you don't sell enough copies, and so you don't get another dime, right? So in fact,
It's the same with film distribution or even
Exactly.
like modeling contracts. They'll bring people in.
music, very similar
Oof.
exploitative models. And
Just peanuts.
yeah, the majority of full-time authors are making less than minimum wage.
Or doing something else.
But even then, it's like it's really, really hard to make a career, like a full-time career off of writing. And of course there's a lot of factors into that. But we said, okay, there's clearly something wrong with the industry. So my partner Adam, who and I started with a bookshelf with 13 books in our living room, just like this, and started selling them and packaging them up in our living room and shipping them to folks and working with authors. And the whole premise of what was then called Shop Queer was we split our profits with the author. So if you sell our book or sell your book on our platform, then at the end of every month, you get a PayPal into your account.
I don't know how you can manage to keep track of all
It's
of
hard.
that. I can't even do my own. I just have to do it at the end of the year when I do my
Yeah.
taxes. I'm like, oh, I made that much. Great.
Yeah, thankfully we have amazing web developers and engineers who have automated all of it. So it's all, like clockwork. But we sold $1 million worth of books last year and then
Whoa.
said, okay, this is getting to be way too much work. We moved from our living room to our garage to like a former hostel in Venice. That was, I don't know if you ever went. It was like
I haven't seen that,
underground,
no.
leaking, but also never had water. It was just like not great. So we were like, okay,
Just magically appearing moistness.
yes, which is not great for books.
Ooh.
And we were like, we need to fundraise. We need to get investors because we were doing it all on our own. And right around that time, we got connected with RuPaul's team, who said, "Oh, Ru
He's
is
in the World of Wonder warehouse now.
essentially." So there's World of Wonder that is Drag Race, and there's Ru Co, which is kind of RuPaul's essentially personal holding company.
And that's out of Indonesia, right?
I'm
kidding.
In Beverly Hills, beautiful house. But they basically said, "Oh my gosh, Ru has a book coming out. He's really obsessed with sharing stories and knowledge and joy to folks, especially given how horrible it is out there for queer kids, both in the real world and online. And also, Ru really is passionate about fighting back against the book bans, against all these discriminatory laws, the anti-trans. He wants to get more involved, and so we teamed up and renamed our shop Allstora. And so launched it almost exactly 2 months ago. And now we went from selling 3,000 books to 1 million books. Still split our profits with authors with a focus on uplifting marginalized stories.
Wow. Eric's always been a role model of mine.
It's exhausting. That's why I have these bags.
I love that you
closely.
partnered with Ru, though. I mean, they say the devil works hard, but an angry drag queen works harder.
I've never seen someone work so hard. I mean, she's 63 now and is still working. I think she's about to start filming next week and is going to be nonstop for 3 months straight, working probably 12-hour days.
I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
We're going to move on to the Book of Queer. Congratulations on the success of the Book of Queer.
Thank
it is
you.
such a fun program. I love, the first time I watched it, I didn't realize how many of the people in it I just knew personally and got so excited.
There's a lot of
I felt like a proud mom.
theater queers from LA.
It's like the theater kid hour.
Yeah.
What motivated you to create the docu-series, and what is your main hope that viewers will take away from it?
That's a great question. So around the time that I was on my own trying to publicize my book, and one of the things my publisher told me, or my literary agent, a lot of editors, my publisher didn't really say this because they were very supportive, but a lot of people in the publishing industry said, Eric, there is no way for you to get on the New York Times bestseller list because there just isn't enough demand for queer history. And I said, screw that. How do I prove to the publisher? Because they weren't going to even print enough copies of my book.
Yeah.
Like my agent told me it was physically impossible to get on the New York Times bestseller list because your publisher chooses how many they print, right? So if they only print a couple thousand,
they only push 1,000.
Exactly. And then you need 5,000 to get on the New York Times list. You physically cannot sell enough to get onto the list. And so I said,
so many gatekeepers.
oh, it's crazy.
Wow.
How it's exactly right. And I was like, all right, well, how do we convince them to print more? He's like, well, you have to build a following and you have to sell pre-orders. And so I looked at honest people like you, people who had built amazing followings, being their authentic selves online through, creating content that's really accessible and fun and true to who you are. And so I was in a tiny little studio apartment in Los Feliz and put up a green screen in my closet. And originally I called it the Magic Closet. And so I would stand there. Do you remember this? I would stand there and I would go to like a different place, like ancient Egypt. And so there would be pyramids behind me in my like shitty green screen that I was learning how to do myself, on
There's something so
Final
beautiful
Cut.
about that.
Oh, it was something. But, and I would like come out and I'd be wearing my like tucked in polo and I'd be like, let me tell you about, queer pharaohs or like non-binary pharaohs or, trans priests in ancient Rome, and slowly but surely started to build a following. And then the book came out and it did well. And, I said, okay, what is the next step for that? I can't do this on my own anymore with this in my closet. I need help. And so
you came out of the closet.
I came out of the closet. I pitched it as a TV show and partnered with Discovery.
Yep.
And basically said, I pitched it as the Magic Closet. And then they said, okay, we'll do it. We'll turn it into a TV show, but we can't call it a Magic Closet because Discovery at the time also had HGTV.
Oh,
and so they were worried.
Show.
They were worried that people would think it would be a closet organization,
like a
show,
Marie Kondo,
which I would also watch.
You can get some. You can
my
bleed
closet
over
is
audience,
a mess. Yeah, exactly.
It's like the campaigning on dog poop.
Yeah. So
Okay.
they together we came up with the Book of Queer, which
has
fun.
18 queer historians in it. How did you find that many queer historians? Where are they?
They're everywhere. I mean, there's so many of us. There are whole conferences of us, and they're amazing. And they're so, academia is a whole nother beast.
Well, how do you even find that information? I feel like when someone gets evidence of someone in history being queer, they burn it or something.
Yeah, and that's usually what's happened. But thankfully now, and really, since the 70s, there has been historians who have risked their careers, because right back then, 50 years ago, if you told your university, I want to write a PhD dissertation on, gay subculture in New York City, then they'd say you're crazy. You're not going to ever have a job. You're probably not going to ever get published. But historians did that, so they've been doing that, and because of them, and because I cited all of them in my book, and then people see my book and my colleagues' books, and they say, okay, there's actually a way to make a career out of this. There's been, I think, a kind of an explosion of queer history.
I feel like you can't even sneeze without creating some sort of community around it.
Yeah,
that's amazing. That's such a
superpower.
Me? Yes,
That's so sweet.
Like you stub your toe and like a colony. Of
it already exists, and that's the thing. It's like these.
So you're just tapping into what's already there.
100%. Like when I mentioned, ancient Egypt, and there are Egyptologists who have spent their entire lives working on this and studying this, and so all I would have to do is do the research, find these people who have written these articles or these books about it, and then just cite it and just make it accessible. And so I think that was really the problem I saw. The community, like the queer historian universe already existed. It was just a matter of taking it away from like the paywall, right? Because often you can only get access to these books or articles if you have a JSTOR application or a subscription or like a university access, right? If you go to Harvard and have access to these databases. So it's just a matter of taking what people are already doing and just telling it in a 1 minute story. And that's it.
I love that, by the way. In the pilot of the Book of Queer, they talk about Akhnaten. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
And how not only were they most likely non-binary, and I feel like a lot of programs always want to show gay heroes, but I feel like Akhnaten was kind of a villain, and that was great.
Oh, 100%.
And that's fantastic. I feel like we need gay rights and gay wrongs. And that's very important to me that
Indeed.
we start, like, I feel like the content nowadays is doing a great job of showing queer people as sloppy and flawed and evil.
There's a whole
but
book
also
on
amazing. You know, like just showing that we don't have to all be role models. Like we're allowed to be on a spectrum of type of people too.
Yeah. There's a great gay book called Bad Gays. It has a great cover.
Oh, I'm sorry, reading that.
But the whole book is about gay villains, essentially. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more thought on the role models, though. Who are some great historical queer role models? The non-villains.
I think my number one, obviously my book is about Frank Kameny, who very complicated, flawed hero. But I think the person in the book whom he borrowed from so much of his strategies when it came to political activism was Bayard Rustin, who was the chief architect of the March on Washington in 1963. Openly gay Black man who also essentially created the Freedom Rides.
Convinced Martin Luther King to go nonviolent.
Exactly. And to see how, even though they likely never met, the fact that
really
maybe it's very, I never saw any evidence of it.
From the book, it sounded like he didn't get a ton of traction until he started acknowledging that their fight was the same. I mean, he was copying a lot of the tactics at first, but it was once he started actually including not just straight acting white men and lesbians in dresses that it actually got the numbers behind it.
Right. If I don't have a record of official meeting between them or official phone call or anything like that, but is there a chance they met at a bathhouse, at a gay bar in DC or some other city? Probably pretty high, actually.
That's another thing I wanted to mention is just how dictatorial Kameny was being with what you can and can't do. And it's I'm sure you've read the book Velvet Rage, where it's all about that shame metastasizing as this other thing. And he's putting on this front of being so respectable and blah, blah, blah. And like his nightly adventures into these parks and bathhouses and things. I think I've done something like that once or twice in my entire life. That is wild.
Yeah.
But like in person, he's
totally
so clean cut and tight knit and just like absolutely, at least at first, unaccepting of anyone who puts out an image other than that. Like you couldn't protest in jeans. Wild to me.
Right.
I love that, like the dichotomy in all of us that has that.
Totally. Our public and private lives. And I think, definitely people who were closeted, which was the vast majority of people who we would now call queer, if they were closeted, they were living two lives because it was very easy, even back in the 50s, to be married, have a family and kids, and then after work every day, you just stop in the public restroom down the block, get done what you need to get done, and then just go home, right? And it's this
right before the grocery store.
Right. And those places were everywhere, but those were really the only places you could go were public parks, public restrooms. Gay bars were scary because people could see you. They could be raided. So it was really these semi-private public spaces like restrooms and parks where people could go.
It's just how it was. That wasn't even that wild. Whereas by today's standards, with everything on apps and whatnot, the idea of like going to a public space for that just seems so wild. Like, I'd only do that on vacation in Berlin. Like,
right. But then I think that dichotomy, as you called it, that also translated to when you were out, that, you had to project this respectability to the rest of the movement,
to overcompensate,
to the government, and then you still have this secret life that you have to keep hidden.
I don't know if this is inappropriate to speculate on, because I don't think you mentioned it in your book, but all signs kind of seem to point to this for me. If Kameny was this brilliant genius astronomer, Big Bang Theory type, like the whole cast of Big Bang Theory, like isn't the joke that like they're autistic? What do you think that there might have been some of that at play in like his inability to kind of compromise and work with others? And do you think that he might have been neurodivergent in that capacity?
I was very careful not to diagnose.
Sure.
Right? Is there a chance he was neurodivergent? I think as a historian, someone who got to know him over the course of 10 years through his writings.
The writings, especially, they're just so like grand.
I think of course there's a possibility. Like I can't rule it out, but I also can't say that he was. But I think his mind worked in really brilliant ways that also had caused him problems, right? He was so
some of those squabbles, it feels like you could write a sitcom on.
Totally.
Despite like the stakes.
So stubborn about everything. And thank God he was, right? Because that's why he fought back against the government. But it was also that same stubbornness about a dress code at his picketing demonstrations in front of the White House. It was that stubbornness that made him irrelevant and that got him essentially kicked out of the movement. And so, less important or more important, I would say, than diagnosing his psychology is what can we learn from his actual, strategies and tactics. And I think my biggest takeaway,
because they still ended up bringing him back in for organizational reasons after they kicked him out. They're like, actually, we need some of that. Come on in.
Of course. And,
because I feel like most of the queer community, and I obviously shouldn't be diagnosing or anything, but I feel like as a whole, we're like ADHD as a group. Like we're always, not everyone, of course, but like I feel in general, like we tend to be big feelers and we're all over the place that like very often we need someone to come in and like structure things for us.
Sure.
Especially gay men. It's like someone get a lesbian in here to organize this for us. Because like
I'm reading a book right now. This morning I was reading a book called Getting Things Done because it's so literally that's the name of it. It's called Getting Things Done because it's like, we're all so bombarded by just the world, the digital world, real life, that it's like, how do you make sense of it? Yeah. And so I think it's something we all struggle with. But the big takeaway for me from Frank was the need to adapt and to evolve, especially when it comes to our beliefs and our strategies and, even within our own movement of what we define as our priorities, right? Like we grew up thinking gay marriage was like the thing we needed, right? That was the battle. And now you talk to other folks, especially people of color within the movement, people who are trans or gender nonconforming, they would say, hey, that may have been a huge waste of time.
Oh.
And even now, looking at the political climate and how, we may be losing a lot of our rights.
It does feel like a luxury compared to the things that those communities are up against.
Exactly.
I had a lot of friends that would like leave the board of the charity they're at because they felt like the focus was on these really niche, their words, things like trans, women of color, stuff like that. And your book really helped give me some communication tools for those people.
That's great.
Not the trans people, but like my friends who are like leaving these movements because they only want to help other gay men or something. It's like these people have been excluded from those movements for so long that it's just literally their turn.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why probably one of the more important stories that I hope people like us or people like your friends or people, who feel like it should be LGB and not LGBT is the story of Sylvia Rivera, right? And how literally what became Lambda Legal, which is the organization that gave us gay marriage, exists solely because of her. And despite everything that she did for gays, for white gays like you and me, she was exiled from the movement, even though she had done so much for us. So to be able to share those stories and say, hey, this is how, frankly, we fucked over a lot of people in our movement. What does that mean about what we need to do to compensate for that? And how do we prevent that from happening again?
I love that. Before we get into my wrap-up segment, I'm sure a lot of people listening or watching, if you're on YouTube, are curious as to how they can get involved and make a difference, because I feel like since 2020, there's been this revolution of like, hey, if you want to do something, maybe don't just post about it.
Yeah.
What would you recommend for someone out there who wants to start making a difference? Where do you even start?
Well, it's an election year, so that's a big one. And I know, it's rough out there, right? For just anything regarding politics right now. And no one is in love with the current president. But also as a historian, to know what's at stake, and to see how easily a democracy can slide into not a democracy.
My partner's from South America and reminds me every day.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I think this is where, yes, we hold our leaders accountable. Yeah, we protest and we fight for progressive causes, but also we have to vote.
Okay.
And I think asking ourselves, who in the past 4, 8, 20, 50 years have we left behind, like we were just talking about?
Yeah.
How do we make sure that their voices aren't getting obscured today during this election cycle? So asking ourselves those questions. But also, I'm kind of biased. I'm repping today the Rainbow Book Bus. So this is the charity that my partner and I started. It's a 22-foot school bus that we
That's
turned.
a great place to start.
Yeah.
Can they volunteer with you or just support?
Support for now. Go to rainbowbookbus.org. We just finished our first national tour. So we gave away 5,000 books, banned books to LGBT centers across the South from here all the way to Tallahassee. So we're kind of regrouping, replanning for the next one.
And no one ran you off the road?
No one
You ran
ran us
yourself
off the road
once.
Yeah, the bus did break down, but we fixed it. So
You did a great job of taking responsibility for that, by the way.
Thank
I feel
you.
like your messaging on that was perfect.
Thank you.
So thank you for all of this. I feel like you do a wonderful job of fighting in such a pivotal time while still finding the joy in all of it. Another thing that in Deviant's War, I'm fanboying, was the scene you depicted of the Stonewall riots themselves with Marsha P. Johnson and dropping a bag of bricks on a cop car. And like, they're getting brutalized by the cops. They're being arrested for quotas by a candidate running for re-election because it makes them look good to up their arrests. They're being hit with water cannons and all this. But even at like 4 a.m. that night, after hours of this, there's still a line of trans girls doing a kick line.
Yeah,
like
singing.
they're still partying and singing and having fun in the middle of all of that. That's what we need to find more of.
And that's the queer experience, right? Is amid the worst of times, the darkest of times, which I would argue is all like right now. We still find love and joy and community. And that is the most beautiful thing in the world.
Thank you. So here on Stuff Every Queer Kid Should Know, I like to end every episode with a segment called Fight Me. My guest is going to select a topic from a list provided of controversial subjects. They're going to pick their stance on it, and I'm going to argue the opposite. Eric, what'd you pick?
Well, we kind of talked about it already, so hopefully it's okay. But I really like gay rights or wrongs. And I'm pro gay wrongs.
Oh, I wanted gay wrongs.
So good luck.
Fine. So would you like to start or shall I? We're going to do a minute each, and then we're just going to go at it. We have gloves in the back.
You start arguing for gay rights.
Okay. Well, I think gay rights are very important because as a gay man, I have been discriminated against. I was punched in the face once on Halloween in Miami. I was dressed as John Wayne Bobbitt. So this is the guy whose wife cut his penis off.
Oh.
Yeah, but I made the mistake of, I wore white underwear with like red food dye. But I made the mistake of wearing like a white tank top too. So everyone thought I was a tampon. But someone in the crowd just thought I was a faggot. And I confronted them on it and their friend sucker punched me. And that was my first hate crime. Yeah, it never really hit home until that moment. And it wasn't even until like 2 days later. I just thought it was like a funny drunk adventure. And my mentor at college was like, Max, you were the victim of a violent hate incident. And like, it wasn't until 2 days later that like my heart sank. And I realized that like other people have to go through 10 times that every single day. Like most of my experience was self-inflicted through just shame. Whereas the violence is so real still. And again, it's especially for the more marginalized communities, the trans women, trans people. How many trans women of color were murdered this year so far? A lot. It's just a super serious issue. And I hope you feel like an absolute asshole arguing in favor of gay wrongs, Eric.
Well, listen. Listen, Max.
Jane, you ignorant slut.
Let me tell you something. I will not say that gay rights are unimportant. However, I would argue that gay wrongs are equally important because so often to be gay, whether it's in Hollywood or in literature
Or in Disney movies.
In Disney movies is a stereotype. and we are held to a higher standard. We have to always be on our best behavior, always, or else it makes the rest of the queer community look bad. And I would argue that that fact negates our humanity, because to be human is to make mistakes, is to also have some aspect of evil, right, in the world.
Right.
And I think that whether it's in storytelling, in Hollywood, you know, the trope of the happy-go-lucky, gay, flaming queen, right, who is just a fun time and then maybe dies at the end.
Mm-hmm. It's like a Mary Sue, but dead.
Yeah, is not what we need, and doesn't capture the full diversity of the human experience. And so I think that gay villains, or bad gays, as the book calls it, is crucial to painting the full spectrum of the queer human experience. And we should not just tell those stories, but celebrate those stories too.
Well, I think we're going to be able to agree to disagree.
Thanks for having me, Max.
Real quick, though, before we end, on 3, we're going to shout out our favorite gay villain.
Ooh.
Ready?
Yeah.
You got it?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Jafar.
Ursula. I was going to say Jafar.
He's the best. He's fabulous.
I knew you were going to say Jafar, so I changed my answer.
Ursula's great too.
Yeah. Where can everybody find you on social media and check out everything that you're up to right now?
Sure. I'm just Eric Cervini, Cervini, on Instagram, TikTok, all of them.
Wow, you got your real name.
Yeah.
Nice.
Do you not?
No, it was taken before I
Really?
even started Instagram. I had a blog in college that was pretty foul, and that's actually kind of what helped me get started there. Yeah. If you'd like to see more about what Eric is up to, check out the show notes. Eric, thank you so much. I love you to death.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Stuff Every Queer Kid Should Know. This is a Wellness Loud production produced by Drake Peterson and Jake Wachtel. Additional production by Cass Falding and Chantilly Toison. The episode was recorded by Jason Siegel, Mun Singh, edited by Jesse Trout, and mixed by Mike Fry. Music by Tom Goss. If you like this show, don't forget to share it with your friends, subscribe on your preferred channel, or all of them, and give us a 5-star rating. It would be super, super helpful. Thank you so much to all my Patreon subscribers. You are credited in the show notes. Thank you for listening. See you next time.